Welcome everyone to the Live Inspired with John O'Leary. It's my pleasure to go ahead and introduce Steve Meyrink. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Amanda. The floor is yours. I always wonder when we're on virtual Zoom what that actually means, but I think we all assign generally definitions to what that means. So first, I just want to say welcome. Can you believe we're having our last Live Inspired called 2022? We're coming down the home stretch of this calendar year, and I couldn't be more excited for the topic that John and Coach Matt are going to touch on today. As you know, I don't know if you're like me, you reflect on 2022. First, you go, wow, it's gone fast. You think of maybe some of the goals that you set out at the beginning of the year. You know, where are we at on that, both personally and professionally, but also to realize that there's still time to make progress, but also it's a time to prepare for what, as we hear John and Matt say often, what can be the best in front of us, which is 2023. So I'm super excited to close out 2022 with our last John O'Leary Live Inspired session together and use that as a springboard to 2023. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Matt and John. Guys, take it away.
Well, thank you, Steve. And I want to second exactly. We had an opportunity to huddle up with Steve right before this call, and John and I were just expressing our gratitude to be a part of this team, to have such the relationships that we have with all of you. Got a lot of text, as you know. We were sitting here side by side last week as the video went out, and all of you texting in of how cute we looked together and so forth. But we do not take lightly the honor of doing life with all of you. And so I just want to say a highlight of 22 by far is to see all these names on the screen, everyone that's on our call, and should just know that, again, we're doing life with you. So much gratitude. And just as I send a reminder out, you know, all of you that have just texted in, like, see you there, see you there. And so we don't take that lightly. One of the things we wanted to do, just like Steve said, is we find that our team, we had a team meeting last week, just reflecting on 2022 and how to make 23 the best year yet. And so we wanted to spend some time this morning on doing exactly that, to take you quickly back. And as John will remind you, this will be highly interactive. And so have your chat box ready to go, because we want to hear from you and just give you a little time as you plug into your week to reflect on 2022. And so with that said, I'm usually in my office and he's here, but without further ado, my friend, your friend, Mr. John O'Leary.
This might be a little too close for comfort. We are like right on top of one another, but I want to make sure that you recognize we are celebrating you this holiday season. So friends and family and leaders, let's get ready to rock and roll, not only into 23, but also celebrate where we've been. One of the takeaways for me, Matt, from the last 11 months is to focus on your most important. For me, it's family. And part of that family is my father. So yesterday I had the opportunity of spending a large chunk of my day with Dad. And part of the conversation led to the holidays. And I said, Dad, what were your favorite memories growing up? And for my father, it was when Frank would come home from work for the final time that year. Frank worked a lot, that's his father. But over the last 7 days of the year, Frank would cook, he would hang out, he would just be part of the family in ways that he was not for the majority of the year. He took a week off. This man who was always working, trying to provide. And my dad's favorite stew that Frank would make would be this ham and this potato stew. So that's what my dad was celebrating. My dad's got Parkinson's disease. He does indeed struggle, but he conveyed that very, very clearly. And then he said, John, what was your favorite memory growing up during the holiday season? And by the way, WK leaders, I'm about to ask you what yours was. So get ready for it, because you'll be typing it in. Mine was when we 6 kids would be loaded into a station wagon, garbed with winter clothes, taken downtown. We would park the car in a garage, walk across the street to the famous Ann Bar. It wasn't famous bar back then, it was famous Ann Bar when we were growing up. There were these cool trains that they had run around the entire store. They had elves who would guide you up an escalator. Oh gosh, up there would be where Santa Claus was, man. You would slowly wait in this long, snaky line, sit on the man's lap, whisper into his ear what you wanted for Christmas, come on back down. And the awe and the surprise and the beauty of the holiday season was something that I will never forget. So I told my dad just yesterday, Dad, I'll never forget that. I'll always be grateful you took the time to take us downtown and create memories like that. So WK leaders, and Matt Miller, I'll ask you too, what was your favorite holiday memory growing up? I know we come from different faith backgrounds, from different experiences from all over the world. So we welcome everybody on this call. But what was your favorite holiday memory growing up as a kid? Please type it in right now. And I'm going to ask Matt to share his, and then for Miller to read some of the comments coming in online.
So my kids still don't believe me, but I'm a small town Iowa farm boy. And so when we celebrated, our family celebrated Christmas, the tradition was to go get a tree. And so we would pack up the pickup, drive the country roads, and find an evergreen tree that we could all decide on that we would cut down in the ditch and bring home. And they're like, no way. And it's like, yeah, that's what we did back then. A, because we didn't have a lot of money. And B, no way was my dad, the farmer, going to pay for a dead tree like I do now with my family. And so I'll always remember that tradition and hopefully get to pass that along someday. So we have a ton of those coming in. I know Andrew's watching them as well. And again, we know there's a lot of different traditions out there. Popcorn balls, that takes me back to Grandma Tony right away. Putting and decorating Christmas, you can catch some of these too.
Waiting for my grandparents to come on Christmas morning so we could open up our gifts and see Grandma come by.
Orange slice cake. Let's go, Sharon. Oh, Dubuque, Iowa gets a shout out. Let's go, Sue.
Pat Asher's making Christmas cookies. I know some of our colleagues who work here at Live Inspire, that's their favorite thing to do presently.
Yep.
How about two more, Matt?
Oh, there we go. Cutting down a Christmas tree with my neighbor. Okay, got that. And counting Christmas lights on Christmas Eve. Wow. Counting Christmas.
That would take a while, man. And Don made the annual trip to Rockefeller Center, which I've been there during the Christmas season, holiday season, only one time, Don. And it was awesome. I can only imagine what that was like growing up for a kid. So for our 250-ish leaders who are on this call and for the 249 comments that just flowed in quickly, we're grateful for each of you. I'm going to share briefly with you before we do a year in review, one of my favorite things to do now. It's to go to the mailbox each day when I come home and come in first with something like this. Open the card up and see something like this. These little holiday cards come in from my friends all around the United States, all around the world. These are the ones I got over the weekend at Live Inspired. Pretty remarkable. We get them at our house too. I keep them in a pile, and then Christmas Eve, I'll read each one of them. I love that tradition. It brings me back though to an experience I had 8 years ago when one of the cards that came in wasn't, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or pictures of Santa Claus on it or snowmen. It was only 4 words. Do not be afraid. Which is a really odd thing to type in or to send someone over the holidays. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. So it caught me a little bit by surprise. I remember turning the card around, flipping it around, seeing who it was. And I was even more surprised when I realized it was from my godmother. My godmother had lost her husband of 42 years in August that year. She was now a widow. She was living in her apartment by herself. They were struggling financially, struggling emotionally, struggling, of course, relationally in every aspect of life. And the card that she chose to send out that holiday season was not one of Santa Claus. It was not one of the pictures of her 3 girls, a picture of, when they first got married decades earlier. It was a reminder for her what mattered during this season, words that she borrowed from her spiritual tradition. Do not be afraid. It's a powerful reminder for all of us, regardless of where we are tuning in from, what we hold on to in our spiritual journey, or what we're turning the page toward in 23, this idea of do not be afraid. So I'm going to ask you one more time to type in that we're going to leverage your comments through the remainder of our time. In what aspect of your life do you need a card to show up and remind you? Do not be afraid. So it could be at WK. It could be in leadership. It could be with a child that you're struggling or got sideways with, a partner, singleness, marriage, health, the world, the economy, the headwinds. I'll let you fill in the blanks. But where do you need the reminder in your life of the power of living out the truth? Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. So Mr. Miller and I are going to give you just 31 seconds to type away. Andrew, I know you're trying to keep track of all this. Good luck on that as the chat blows up again. But it's my belief, and Matt's, after speaking with hundreds of you over the last 330 days, that many of us deal with fear. Me too. And yet there's reasons to have confidence that better days are in front of us.
So as John, Caroline, I caught yours. You're not alone, right? You and I have huddled up several times, so don't think I didn't catch that one right there. Health, family, kids, time management. Summer, that's one we huddle up often in the coaching sessions with. Family, health, fear, relationship with my son. Sarah, thank you for that. Kids going to college, me too. Trying to buy a house, aging parents. John and I, we both share that one as well. Health of parents, absolutely. Trying to figure out how to enjoy the holidays.
Judy, the economy. Our hands are held up high for that one too, and so are the leaders organizationally. It's something we are all dealing with and will deal with going forward.
Julia, your mom, raising teenagers. Ryan, we don't have a solution to that. I'm just kidding.
Guys, it seems like these tied very closely to everybody's one thing when we go back to thinking about when people were chatting about their one thing. It's great that this time of season focuses us on our one thing.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
What a perfect tie-in. So Andrew, I'm going to leverage that, man, right now, because here we go, my friends. We are now in December. Some of you have been partying with us now for month 12 of our journey forward in 2022. Matt kicked us off. I'll echo what he said. We're grateful. We don't take this for granted. You're making an investment in us every single time you raise your hand and you show up. So what we wanted to do as we wrap up this year and get us ready to not only finish strong, but start next year even stronger, is remind you what you've heard over the previous 11 sessions. So Matt, I'm going to invite you to share the screen so that they can see.
Thank you.
Just a little reminder of session one. There, oh, look at that guy. Thank heavens there's a big old red square over his mouth. Otherwise, he'd probably be trying to talk too. But January reminded us of a new resolution. We talked during that one about broken commitments. We also chatted with my friend Antonio Neves. Remember Antonio? We're his friend. WK, he spoke directly to you and he said to you, call me Tony, call me Tony. And then Tony shared the story of when he was struggling financially, struggling relationally, struggling with addictions, how he went outside. He brought with him a kitchen glove. And if you remember the story, he brought the kitchen glove so that when he went back inside, his wife would not know that he'd been outside smoking. One of the individuals who passed by was a homeless gentleman who said, do you have one I can borrow? Antonio gave it to him. And the gentleman who has no shelter looked at Antonio and said, dude, you got to figure that out. And then he walked away with a cigarette in his hand. But at least he was holding it in his hand, not in a kitchen glove. So we talked last January about a new commitment. And Andrew, you just challenged us on this, that one word. Each of you laid out one word for 2022. I wrote them all down. Matt turned it into the logo for WK. I don't know if you remember, he did that. He did do that. So if you remember what your one word was and what it is, type it in, because we're about to turn the page right now from the one word into living it. So session number one, a new resolution, was on living out family and focus and faith, Ginger and Andrew family. Isn't it great to see the leaders of our organization saying, yeah, my one word was family. Yeah, right on. Paul, family.
Yep. Keep them coming in. We told you this session is going to be highly interactive. You think we have you chatting in before? There we go. Family, presence, faith, family. Keep them coming in. Commitment. That was mine too, Summer. Committed. Family, connection, family, presence, communication. Keep them coming in. Family, health, courage, family. Let's go. Charge, like that, Wayne. Let's go.
I cheated. I gave you all one word. I used two. My two were never quit. And as part of January, I shared the story of Glenn Cunningham, that beautiful man who was burned at age 8, lost his brother Floyd, almost lost his legs, became not only a great marathon runner and an Olympian, but a humanitarian who changed 9,000 young people's lives. And after he got a hold of John O'Leary, 9,001 lives along the way to the finish line. Shoulders back, he finished strong. The word we used for the year was going to influence the year ahead. So then we shifted from January into February. And Matt, share the screen one more time. We talked about absolute silence. Absolute silence. This time, it's not O'Leary's big old mug on the screen. You had Miller behind the square and that little triangle. We shared the story of who the most powerful listener you knew was and what that meant to you. And you might remember, you all typed in, who is the best listener you know and why? And then Matt shared a beautiful quote from Simon Sinek. I'm going to read it because I don't have it memorized word for word, but Matt, this is what you said. Hearing is listening to what is said. Listening is hearing what isn't said. Whew. So hearing is listening to what is said, but listening is really hearing to what isn't said. So we had an exercise on really not only hearing, but listening, absolute silence. And then I shared the story of visiting with my mom while she was in hospital. And we had this really deep conversation about the people who showed up for her when her little boy John was in. We talked about some of the celebrities from around St. Louis, around the country, and around the world who came by the hospital. And I said, Mom, who was the most important person who visited with you? And she shared the story not of Ronald Reagan or Jack Buck, but a high school history teacher named Don Lee. And I said, Mom, what was it about Don Lee? And she said, gosh, John, he was such a good listener. And then she shared the beautiful story, the day that she walked out of my room, the day that my fingers were amputated and she was broken. She walks outside, she's crying, he's in a darkened waiting room, and he's just seated there. And she said, it was the most powerful conversation I've ever had in my life. And I said, well, what did he say? And she said, well, that's just it. He didn't say anything. He didn't say a word. He just listened. So then what Miller did is he challenged us at the very end. And Matt, I'm going to read the thing, but you said, John and Steve and Andrew and Tom and Amanda and Ashley and Susan and everybody else, I want you to share with me one thing that you will choose to do this week to be a better listener. So Matt, I'm not going to have you read all 200 plus texts that you got back, but share with us just a couple ideas on what we can do to be better listeners in life as we lead through the holiday season and beyond.
So we were counting up the number of coaching sessions so far last month, and we were like 421. I think we're going to hit 500 by the end of the year. And here's why I say that. Number one is we show up like this live. We text back and forth with you, those of you that are all in. And I think most importantly, where this topic unpacks itself is in our little 15-minute coaching sessions. And that's why I'm so grateful as I look at the screen. There's so many of you that we've huddled up. And one of the top 3 topics that we unpack more than anything is relationships. And what mostly comes up is what was happening in the chat there, right? Family, parents, family. And too many times we take for granted the power of listening. And what we find more than anything is the one next step. Every coaching session ends with the next right step is we just ask the question, how can I be a better dad? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better significant other, a son, a daughter, whatever that may be? And then just listening, right? Waiting for the answer and just listening. And as simple as that sounds, too many times we just don't take the time. We're listening to reply. We assume what they need versus just that kind of absolute silence, just listening and then acting on that next step. And so as those of you chatted in, family, and so forth, you're struggling with that, I got to plug the coaching session, man. Sign up. I'll be sending my calendar out again. Let's huddle up. Because what ends up happening at each of those is, and those of you can shake your head that have been in them, we go with the next right step. We end every single session with, and what's our next right step? And then we follow it because the next right step leads to the next right step. So John, over to you on the power of listening and how effective it is.
In 4.5 seconds, I'm going to ask Matt to share the screen again. But before he does, I've had 2 family members struggle mightily in my life. And when they asked me who the finest coach they could have around marriage, or for another one, around career transition, I gave them Matt's cell phone. The same number that was just texted in to everybody else, the same number that you all have access to, for a guy who could turn my sisters, 2 of them, I have 4, so it doesn't tell you which one's which, but one is struggling mightily in a relationship, one is struggling mightily professionally. And when they said, O'Leary, who do you know? John, my brother, we love you, we trust you, who do you know? I know this guy, and I love him, and I respect him. And I said, sisters, utilize Matt, and he has, and he served them well. If you've never benefited yet from Matt coaching and just visiting with you, finish 22 strong. Reach out to Matt, set up a time, and watch what happens. Okay, so Matt, there's the plug, but it is sincere. I thank you for what you've done. We're going to start racing a little bit, my friends. You're probably looking at the clock right now and saying, my gosh, we're halfway through this thing and we're in February. Yeah, no, we're not. We're in March now. Okay, and in March, we talked about psychological immunity. You might remember the park and the drive and the reverse of the neutral, this idea of being neutral. It's okay to be neutral in life. It's okay to be neutral in life, to be able to choose your emotions, to sit with them. So Matt gave us a great exercise on that. We then turned the calendar from March into April. It was in April that we talked about focus. Really thoughtful, coming out of the P, the R, the N, the D into, okay, so what do you want to focus on? Matt kicked us off on that call by saying, so what do we normally focus on? Distractions. So he listed out for us 3 distractions. One of the ones I remember most, Matt, you probably do as well, digital distractions. And on the day he shared that, he said, there are 3 things that scare me about the Apple iPhone. 3 stats. Number 1, we spend 3 hours and 41 minutes on it a day. 3 hours and 41 minutes. 160 times we interact with that thing. We actually look at the screen. And as big as that number is, it was the final one I wrote down, 2,615 times you touch it. 2,615 times in a 24-hour day, you are picking at that phone. So Matt said, if you want to get focused, put the distraction down. That was one thing he mentioned. Talked about people sometimes being distractions, and also justified excuses that we give ourselves. So he helped us get focused, which allowed us to turn the page from January, February, March into May, which then we had one of the most meaningful, inspirational, tear-jerking sessions we've ever had on pivoting from negativity. I don't know if you remember it well, but Matt put it back up on the screen for a moment so they can be reminded of the session. But there it is right there. Yeah, O'Leary's up there now in this room with the blue shirt, t-shirt showing. We talked about a phone call that I'd received that weekend from a guy named Gordon. I met him in prison. No, not from the one time when I spent some time in a prison. That's a different story, Steve. I'll share with you some other time, one-to-one in St. Cloud. But a different time when I went into a prison to speak. And I was so moved by these prisoners that I went back and I brought friends. And one of the friends I brought the second, and then again the third time, was the man seated next to me. That's the time Matt met a guy named Gordon. And then 2 days before you and I talked about pivoting from negativity, I got a phone call from Gordon. Gordon went into prison in August of 1976. It's before the WK contract began. It's before I was born. And he talked about the gift and the freedom of being on the outside now. Freedom was his word. So we went through and we gave you some ideas on how to be free and how to pivot. And we talked about empathy and silence. And then ultimately, when that negativity keeps coming at you from a person who's close to you in life, Matt and I talked about, it could be a spouse, it could be a parent, it could be a child, it could be someone you work next to, it could be your direct report or someone who reports through you, a client, Andrew, that you've got to serve. What do you do when the negativity is not just a news channel, but it's someone you care for deeply? So the 3 ways: empathy, silence, again, and pivot. Matt, just spend a moment talking about maybe one of those and why it matters.
Well, and it goes back to what I just unpacked with listening, that when we huddle up and we're kind of in this environment where we think we always have to reply and comment and maybe get the last word in and so forth. And I think I've shared with you, my relationship with my 21-year-old son has never been better, because I don't say 7/8 of the things that come into my head. And I mean that is that it's one thing to think it, it's another to say out loud. And what I realized, as a lot of you were chatting in your relationships, it wasn't so much what they were doing, it was how I was reacting to it. And so when I reflected on my most important relationships and how I could do better, what I realized was I was the one messing it up most of the time, because I was the one making that comment and not just truly listening. And in that session, we talked about just the power of silence and the power of truly listening. Ryan, the power of the pause, exactly. Putting space in between stimulus and response. And we can all agree, better decisions come when we give it just a little bit more time. And so I challenge all of you that as you reflect in this 2022, I know we keep coming back to the one area, and some of you are like, Matt, I get it, one, but here's what we know. When we're in this world of multitasking and focusing on so many things, the more things we're focusing on, the less productive we are. And so that's why we keep coming back to this one. And so in particular with that one, the power of listening and how to just truly be silent, maybe ask the question or do some reflection yourself and be like, what's in my circle of control? What can I do to help this relationship? Because remember, we won't go down this tangent too much. We can unpack that in a coaching session. But when we rely on others, that's outside our circle, right? So if we want a relationship to improve, the first question is, what can I do, right? What is in my circle? I think a guy reminds us, why me? Who cares? What more can I do, right? So back over to you, Jo.
All right, I just saw Tom Hurst, so I want to get to Hurst as quickly as I can. So I'm going to speed through June and July. I will remind you of the topics. And I'll also remind you that this is all available online. So Matt later on this week will send out a text in case you're like, man, I want to learn more about psychological immunity, or I want to learn a little bit more about fun, which was June. July, Matt, was the ROI of service. Great, inspirational, awesome, cool, meaningful topic, but it led ultimately from July into August. And, I have 4 kids, Matt has 3. And if you were to ask us which one's our favorite, we probably would have a tough time picking, so we would choose not to. But if you forced me to pick one of these 12 topics this year, a leader's superpower. Oh man, it's such a worthy topic, because in the Western world, we think it's all about how much we can get done, how independent we can be, how high we can climb, how much damage we can do all by ourselves, how cutting that tweet can be, all that stuff. That's what we celebrate in this world. But the leader's superpower celebrates the actual superpower, which is their willingness and the humility of asking for help, We gave you a chat that day, and we're going to give it to you right now one more time. But in August, first Monday in August, we said, hey, why don't we ask for help more? And while you typed in, I shared the story of my dad's Parkinson's disease. And I shared the story of the superhero cape that he wears. And then I shared the story of my father flying while his son-in-laws and 2 grandchildren carried him in a wheelchair on the beach. The superhero that is my dad, the leader that I've always looked up to and still do, could not walk onto the beach or jog onto the beach or skip onto the beach. So he raised his hand and asked for help. And then in the picture, what Matt and I showed you in August is this picture of 4 kids carrying their father or grandfather, and all 5 people in the picture joyfully smiling. The hero allowed the others to pick up some of that strength. So my question to you, and I'm asking you again, why don't we ask for help more often? You answered it in August, but I think too often we forget the answers we give. So I'd like you to answer it not only in August, but again in December. Steve, Meredith, Ashley, Susan, Tom, and others. Lisa, I see you there, Lisa Bush. Why don't we ask for help more? What keeps us from doing that? I'll give you a moment to answer. I'm going to have one more sip of my spiked eggnog. It's a holiday party over here at Live Inspired. Wow, dude. I mean, I'll read this for Matt. The first 5 that came in, I told you in the front, the holiday card, do not be afraid. But the first 5 all said, man, what keeps me from asking?
Fear. Feel like you should know, excuse me. Only child syndrome, Eric. Pride,
Eric.
I'm important. Oh, I'm impatient. Good. Trust, fear. Don't want to inconvenience others.
Lack of vulnerability, burdening others.
Art, thank you. Feel like you need to be there for others versus admitting for help. Love it. Excuse me. Fear of the unknown, fear. Hard to admit it, right? It's one of the probably the most powerful sessions we had when people truly reflected and unpacked on, one area, right?
Well, and in one of the comments that came in August, Miller and I both separately wrote it down. So Hurst, this one's for you, buddy. I don't know who said it, but let me quote it back to you. Not asking for help is selfish. Whew. I never once thought about that like that in my entire life. Not asking for help is selfish. So that goes to Tom Hurst. And Tom, it led us to sharing the story ultimately of a fellow who had to ask for help. It might be Miller. Miller might need like some cough drops in here or something. So one send a holiday card with cough drops. I probably need some help next. It was Charlie Plum. Charlie Plum was shot down on his 75th and final mission in Vietnam and spent the next 8 years as a prisoner. He asked for help and he challenged you, WK. Do you remember the quote? In fact, first one to guess the quote on what he said. He said, "You got to tug. Come on. One of you's going to win something today."
Oh, come on. He gave it
tug.
away. Yeah.
Now pull a string. It's close.
Julie, I'll still count that.
All right, fine. The Wire, Nasser, and Mark.
I knew Mark, but yeah.
So what we're gonna count those all three as the winners. Go tug on a wire. Go encourage one another. Go ask for help. It is your superpower. Use it.
And I want to jump in before he says anything, before going to the next, because in a coaching session, I'll never forget the time where somebody reversed the role and said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And it was the first time that I answered that question, because usually I'm like, no, we're on you. Everything's fine. They're like, no. What are you working on? How can I hold you accountable? And when I shared that, the person looked back at me and said, "Thank you for validating our relationship." And it really reminded me that when we ask somebody for help, when we're vulnerable, when we look at them and say, "I need some help," what we're really doing is establishing more trust and validating that relationship. So just a reminder as we move on to the next.
And move on to the next. We will and must, as the Cinderella is about to lose the magic and she's going to lose those shoes here in a moment. So let's talk about September, change or die. And we shared with you this shocking stat both in September and in October and in November, all 3 months, 9-1. If you knew that you were doing something might cause you to die, what is the likelihood of you being able to make a change that would free you from that? And the odds were in our favor, we thought 9-1. But then it came out actually 9-1 that we would be unable to make that change. So you and I and Coach Matt have spent the last 3 months talking about, so how do we? Because we want to make change that elevates our relationships at home, our work life, our spiritual journey, our physical life, our financial life. How do we make those changes? So we gave you 3 so far. Month 1 in September was about relationships. Again, we keep going back to it, but gosh, it's so important. As we then pivoted into October, we talked about reframing. We whispered it in the past, but we roared it in October, this idea of pivoting your perspective, reframing what you see. It matters. The way you choose to see something influences the thing you see, and what you focus on grows. And then we moved into November. There's O'Leary wearing his little checkered shirt and getting ready for the holidays already. November 2022, radical progress. And it was in that session I shared the story of the plane crash in the Andes and the journey that Nando Prado made all the way up to the peak, this massive, heroic climb. But when I asked him in the podcast, what was the hardest part about that journey? Was it the first peak, the second peak, months without food? What was the hardest part, man? The first step. Nasser, you're on it, baby. The first step was the hardest. So the radical progress that we seek in life is not climbing to the top of the ladder or the mountain, looking down and saying, hey, look at little people, look what I've achieved all by myself. It's having the audacity to grab the arms of your brothers and sisters in the community reframing what you see as possible in your life, and having the audacity to decide where you want to go and the courage to take that first step, which then leads us through the Thanksgiving holiday into December. We made it, Miller. Come on. I'm excited, man. I need more eggnog. I need more eggnog. All right, so people, we have made it into December. I'm going to turn the page for the final time today. We, Miller and I, and the leaders here at WK wanted us to reflect during this session on the previous 11. That's what we've done. But we're not the only ones that like to reflect on the year. Apparently, so does Webster's Dictionary. Did you know that? Did you know that? Anybody know what the word of the year, no cheating, okay, no Googling on this one. Anybody know what the word of the year for 2022 is? I'm pulling it up already, man.
Wow.
I love that
Paying
word.
attention.
I think it comes from a play from the late 1930s, turned into a movie in the late 1940s, and became popular through like a couple NPR interviews in late 21, and it just blew up in 2022. This idea of gaslighting, slowly dimming the lights so that someone else thinks that they're actually going mad, slowly going mad. That's the word for 2022. I wanted to share a couple other words with you from the past 22 years. I won't read all 22 of them, Miller. Don't be worrying right now. But this might remind you of some of the headlines in the papers, maybe in your life that you experienced. I'm going to start in 2020. Chad, not a man's name, Chad. I'm assuming you all remember the frequency with which we heard the word Chad in 2020. It was an election time. Imagine that, a very divisive election between the Democrats and the Republicans. And then there were some of those darn things in Florida. Chads, number one word for the year in 2020. 21, this should surprise none of us, and I won't read them all. 9/11. And then into WMD the following year. And then democracy. And then blog, and then onward from there in 07. I like this one a lot. Woot. W00T. Woot. 08. Bailout. Do you remember where you were then? Bailout. Admonish. Austerity in 10. Some of us lived that. Austerity. And 11, pragmatic, and then socialism, and then culture, and then science, and then ism, and then surreal, and then feminism, and then justice. In 2019, the singular form of this word, they, was the word of the year in 2019. And then 2020, pandemic. 21, vaccine. And then high five in where we are right now, gaslighting. It's not those words I want to focus on as we wrap up this session and wrap up this year. It's a word from 04. It's one of my favorite words, my friends. Defenestration was the 10th most popular word according to Webster in 2004. Defenestration. What the heck, O'Leary, are you talking about? Well, D from Latin. I'm going to take you way back to high school. Here we go. D means down from quickly. Down from quickly. Fenestration. What that means, window. Down from the window quickly. The actual translation or the dictionary form of defenestration is this: the act of aggressively throwing someone or something out the window aggressively. Defenestration. This has been a difficult year, and a good year, and a painful year, and an awesome year. And there's all this tugs and pulls and shifts in our lives, culturally and environmentally and relationally and financially in every aspect of our life. As we wrap up 2022, we want you to clean the closet a little bit. We keep trying to put things in the closet. Add one more thing to your to-do list, please. No, not this time. Take something off. Throw something out the window. Defenestration time, people. So Matt, as we wrap up this session and this year with these friends, I'd like you to succinctly tell us how we can throw something out the window to make room for an even cleaner, better, bigger, bolder house in 23 and beyond.
So it was ironic. You'll notice Jo here in the USA and all of us enjoying the World Cup. one of our dear friends and coach here at Live Inspired and a family member is Travis Thomas. He's the mental conditioning coach for the U.S. soccer team. And it was ironic as we put today's agenda together this past month, his message before they left yesterday was he was huddling up with a player that was really struggling with some mistakes that he had made. And as they brainstormed that, they used another analogy of what they're going to pack in their bags and go home, and some things that they're going to leave there. Much to this analogy of, it's not so much sometimes what we choose more to do, it's what we choose not to do. And in this session, they chose what to put in their bag, and then some things that they're going to leave, that they learned some lessons, right? Some good things happen there. But what are some things they're going to either forgive themselves or leave there so that they can make 2023 the best year yet? And so, not in the chat, but I would ask you to, how we end each session, if you will grab your phones. And for those of you that might be on this call that are not all in, I think we have it in the chat. Amanda, if you'll throw that in again, 314-207-5010. What's that one thing you're going to use the analogy of your choice? Throw out the window, right? Or not pack in the bag for 2023 as you go into the new year. But as we plan for January, it's going to be one of our best sessions yet. We always say that, but it truly is.
Yeah.
When we set the stage of best year yet. It's some of our best content. So we're excited about what our January call entails. But before we do that, again, sometimes it's not so much what we add, it's what we choose not to do, right? To eliminate the distractions, to choose to, throw out that one bad habit. And so if you will please take a second, text me 314-207-5010. What's the one thing you're going to choose not to do in 2023? Again, we have 20 some days left, right? We challenged you on our last call. We had 50 some. And so starting that habit now is something that we encourage you to do. And so as you're finishing that, I have one more ask.
Let's
go ahead.
Just one moment. It's so important to just spend. Yeah. I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to text this into Matt. I think it really does matter. I haven't thought of mine yet, and I want to text you what I'm going to throw out the window. That doesn't mean like, I maybe not do. No. We are going to the window. We are emptying the trash. What are you throwing out the window with urgency as we wrap up this year, getting ready to step into the next one? We try to put so much into our bag and onto our plates. So leaders, WK friends, I view you as family. I know Matt does as well. What do you want to toss out? And to Matt's point, it could be a relationship. It could be a habit. It could be a million things, but it's something. And you probably know what it is. And if you don't, ask the person who knows you best. They know what it is. So Matt, I know you're getting some comments already, but just read a few, not the names, but some of them.
So just, I'm going to minimize my phone use. Some negative relationships I have, beat myself up, my negative self-talk, not to overreact, resentment. They're flying in so much I can't keep up. Reacting too fast, right? Power of the pause, relationship. Mom guilt, okay?
Wow.
Keeps going on and on. So again, I can't keep up, but all of you texting, you can see as they're flying in. And so thank you for that. I'll be circling back up with a number of things today. One, making sure that you have my Calendly, and so that we can huddle up before the end of the year on whatever you want to focus on to get better when it comes to 2023, or you don't know that thing to throw out. Let's huddle up. Second, to let you know that we have all of this year in review on our dedicated website that we've built for all of you. I'll send that link out as well. And then last but not least, Meredith, if you don't mind, if you will put in the chat, one of the things we want to make sure that we're doing on a regular basis and even more regular basis is getting some feedback from all of you. We love coming live like this with I see 234 of you still all in. The weekly text, as much as sometimes I'll get a text from quite a few of you like, oh man, I didn't reply last week, but I want you to know that weekly text keeps the main thing, and you keep me refocused. That's exactly what it's there for, right? It's just that weekly piece. And I hope you know how much I enjoy texting back and forth with you. And then I can't express enough the coaching sessions that allow us to do the one-on-ones and really unpack whatever that is that we want to get better at and what a next step is. And so we have dropped in the chat. Meredith, do you have that for me? Can you drop that in? Nope.
Amanda does.
I'll drop it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
So if you will take, so at 10:49 Central Time, if you will take just a second, click on that link. There's 3 simple questions with some stars. We ask that if there's been a story that has come out of the last 11 months anonymously, we would love for you to share that. And then last but not least, what the 2 of us can do to better serve you in 2023. And so I know one of the things we're going to do more often is do the coaching calls just like this.
This is way too.
I like
close
it
for
better
comfort.
than sitting in our office. So I know that's one change we're going to make because I've enjoyed this session just being right here with John. But we're all in, and I hope you know that by now. And if not, and you are, tell a friend. But we are truly committed to doing anything we can to help you find success professionally and significance personally. So Jo.
Yeah, I'm gonna just allow a few moments of silence to please do click that link. And from Sue-Ann, we see the comment. We thank you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Wonderful wrap to this year and a strong start to next. And for those who haven't yet clicked the link, please do so. We want your feedback. Matt delivered an incredible session on one of the most powerful ways to grow as a leader is through feedback. We want to serve you better. And so your candid, confidential responses will help us do exactly that. So please do answer the questions, help sharpen our saw. We want to wrap up this year strong, but we want 23 to be your best year yet.
So we're going to give you another minute. Again, please click on the link. Give us some feedback.
And I'm wearing this jersey while some of you are looking up, waiting for us to say the next thing, and others are done typing, and others are just starting to type. Not so much because the American team won or lost, but because of the moment after the Iranian game, when one of the players on their team was weeping and lonely and broken. And instead of his coach or another Iranian player walking over to him, comforting him, it was the opponent. It was the other team. It was an American player. And those 2 men just held each other. And it's such a tender, awesome moment between different religions and different nations and different cultures and different teams on what matters most, not only on the field of the World Cup, but on the field of life. So this shirt isn't worn to brag. It's worn to remind us of the power of coming back together. Okay, so that's why I'm wearing this thing all day long, to be reminded of what compassion looks like in action and the impact of it in the lives of others. So we have wrapped up 11 sessions. You have provided feedback to us, not only on this one, but how to make year 23 even better. And we are now going to wrap up, Matt.
So with that said, January, as we look to our January call, I don't have the date in front of me. I think it's the 9th, maybe. Let me double check. Yes, January 9th. Amanda will probably remind us of that too. Best year yet. And so again, as we close this year, reflection, encourage you to continue that reflection through 2022, whatever we can do to serve you better. And January 9th, our next call, again, we just want to wish you a great time with friends and family, and strong in Q4. And if there's anything we can do to serve you, your family, your circle of community, we're all in. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Amanda to put a bow on it, and then we will stay on for any questions, comments, anything else that we can do. Thanks, Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Just a reminder, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box. I have enabled everyone's microphones. So if you'd like to go ahead and ask any questions verbally, this is a good opportunity for you to do so. We do ask that you go ahead and turn on those webcams if you're able to. So again, your guys' lines are unmuted and the chat is still open, and also that survey is still right there as well. So make sure you take that survey. Back over to you, Coach Matt.
I'm gonna grab the ball, Amanda, just for a moment, because I saw Steve's comment and I love it. And I see all these friends on this screen. and you see this guy and I like sitting awkwardly close to one another. We practice what we preach around here. We, as of late last night, had a robust slide deck to walk you through a year in review, Steve. So not only would you have felt like you were watching your favorite Netflix series, it would have actually looked like your favorite Netflix series. You would have seen some of the comments from some of your favorite characters on your favorite Netflix series. It was awesome. It was bundled up. A lot of time and effort went into it, which meant when I turned on my computer last night and smelled smoke, and this is it right here. This thing literally caught fire last night, and I'm going to the Apple store after this, but all of this work went into this program for today. And I told Matt about it last night, and he's like, it's good. We just get to be even more informal and more authentic with our friends. It's all good. So yeah, we're disappointed that this program wasn't the one that you experienced today, but Matt's right. It's good. The more we can quickly pivot from the struggles and the challenges into opportunities together, the more effective we can be, not only as we wrap up December, but as we step into January and beyond. So it is good, Matt.
I'm laughing because I walked in this morning and he was expecting me to be like freaking out. And I'm like, it's good. We got this. It's all good. And I hope that is a lesson. Like, yes, we go through tough stuff. Tough things happen in our lives. And after we get through the point of whatever we want to be reactive about, the only choice we have is to learn from it, get in our circle of what we have control over, and take a next right step. And that's truly what we're committed to helping you into 2023. So I love this part of it because I'm just going to scroll back and forth and see all of my friends. And I see RT and Greg and Renee. And
well, your brother Mark Miller commented, so that's nice that your brother's online.
No, he's M2. M2, like you got to know of the inside nicknames. Come on. So Steve Honduras, I see you all. Samantha, as we click through. So with 5 minutes left, I know some of you need to go. We try to give you the gift of time a little bit. A lot of you stay back on. Anything for the good of the order as we put a bow on 2022 and your reflection over the last 56 minutes.
Don't be shy. Your lines are able to be unmuted. Go ahead and unmute those lines if you guys have anything to say for our closeout.
I just love Nasser's smile. Look at him. Look at him. Look at that. Even bigger.
I know.
Look at him, right?
You are the winner, Nasser. I don't know what you win today, but I'm sending you something in the mail, man. So get ready for it.
This was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. And just again, if you didn't tell us that, there was a different presentation, I mean, this was the best ever anyway. So I don't know how you would top that.
Thank you. You are going to see us more together in the future, I can tell you. I'm done sitting in my office. So I'm just clicking through pictures for those of you that have your screens on, trying to give some shout outs as I see. Patty, thank you. Trying to pay attention to the chat.
Right on. Well, I don't think there are going to be any questions. I remind you on behalf of Matt Miller, our entire team, that we are here for you to help you grow professionally, successfully, and personally significantly. And I remind you, in spite of the struggles we face personally and culturally, that the foundation is firm, the headwind may be real, but the best is yet to come. So WK family and friends, leaders, we love you. There's nothing you can do about it, and have a wonderful holiday season. The best to you as you wrap up this year.
And he usually says, for this time and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. No, my name's Coach Matt. This is John O'Leary. Today is your day. Live inspired. Choose to have a great week. Have an awesome one. Keep in touch. Anything we can do, let us know.
Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Andrew.